Democrats in the House are saying that House Republicans, oh no, Senate Democrats are saying that House Republicans caved as the deal moved forward to reopen DHS. Oh my God. It's actually up in the air right now if Trump will let them reopen the DHS. Because if you remember, he wants the SAVE Act to be passed. The SAVE Act being the bill that would require you to get a whole new voter ID, show all this proof of identification, you know. I mean, it's gross. It's the new poll tax, in my opinion. I've been considering the new poll tax for a while, because that's what I think it is. I think it's the new poll tax. You have to pay an exorbitant amount of money for an identification card that is not your driver's license, in which your driver's license already requires a birth certificate, proof of residency, you know, all this different stuff. It still requires that. And it even has a little star for the real ID to show that it's not only a real driver's license, but that you're also a U.S. citizen. And apparently that's not enough. He wants you to have to go out, spend $200, waste a day that you could be using working. Like I just said, blow $200 of your hard-earned money to get a voter ID card and use that to vote. And women will struggle to be able to do that because their birth certificates might not match the name that they've chosen to go by in their marriage if they've changed their last name. It's the new poll tax. So I'm wondering if Trump will... Lord, I have this whole thing out of whack. I wonder if Trump will, you know, actually reopen the DHS, especially with, you know, the SAVE Act not being passed. Here is a Republican being grilled on CNN.
You were Ohio Secretary of State for 8 years. Would you agree with Senator Barrasso that you ran fair, safe, and secure elections?
Of course we did. We did it within the laws that were granted to me. I don't make the laws. I run the elections. We made it easy to vote and hard to cheat.
But still, if they were fair,
fair,
safe, and secure, and at the time when you were Secretary of State, you could use a utility bill or a bank statement or a government check as an acceptable form of ID at the polls on Election Day. So when you were Secretary of State, that's what was acceptable to vote. So why is that not acceptable now?
Boom. Why is there no voter fraud in your state? Yet they're voting with no voter ID. Why is that okay there? But nationwide, it's a big problem. What's up with that? It's a valid question. And it really does poke holes in their logic here, where they're like, oh, we have this rampant, widespread voter fraud. We need you to get voter IDs so we can make sure our elections are secure. And no more mail-in voting and all this stuff. And meanwhile, all these red states have been using these systems with great success, like the rest of the country. So what's up with that?
That's what the law was when I was Secretary of State. The law can be improved.
No, sure, that's fine, but they were safe, fair, and secure. You say they were fair, safe, and secure. You agree with Senator Barrasso, and yet utility bill, bank statement, or government check, no real ID. And furthermore, that real ID that's used in Ohio under the new law actually...
I can explain to you how it actually worked. I had to go all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court to get the authority to maintain the voter rolls. Because why? Because many states don't maintain the voter rolls properly. They have people on the voter rolls who are not legally allowed to vote in this country. And so if they're not going to maintain the voter rolls, then...
That's just not true. That is just not true. The amount of voter fraud that has occurred in 40 years is like a fraction of a percentage. And I'm being generous when I say that. It is like 9 zeros type of fraction. Like 8 or 9 zeros after the decimal and then like a 1. The drop in the bucket. Inconsequential level of voters casting ballots fraudulently.
At the point of voting, we need to know who's
so
actually
crazy.
voting, and a photo ID is the best, safe, and fairest way to do that.
So why is a driver's license not good enough? I have been arguing this about voter ID laws for a long time now. Make the voter ID free. It shouldn't cost money. We pay taxes. It should be free. Why we pay taxes and then have to pay for shit from the government that we're paying taxes to? I don't know. Sorry, I don't know. But make the voter IDs free then. Issue them out. It's the same logic I have about why we have to file our taxes every season with a third party and why the IRS can't just send us the bill. Why we can't just send the IRS our info and they send us the bill. They know how much I made last year. They know how much I've paid in taxes. Same thing with this. Make voter IDs free, and it's no longer a problem. It's not an issue if voter IDs don't cost money, and they don't require you to go stand in long-ass lines at some government agency that's underfunded and understaffed, making you wait in these long-ass lines just to get your ID card.
80% of the American people support that. That is the best way to run an election. And Democrats said they didn't oppose that. I offered an amendment to give them a chance to do that, and they still said no.
No, I hear you on that. But just to be clear, when you were Ohio Secretary of State and you could vote using a utility bill, bank statement, or government check, that was a fair, safe, and secure election. That's just what you said.
And we had fraud during that time under those provisions, okay? I did audits that showed that there were people on the voter rolls who tried to vote.
You didn't have very much, considering that they're talking about some of these Save America.
I guess you're arguing that a little bit of crime is okay, but even if we can fix it so that there's no crime.
No, that's not what I'm arguing at all.
I
understand that's what you want to say. That's not what I'm saying.
You're telling me that the fraud is inconsequential. So that must mean that you want more fraud. Holy shit. Holy shit. What a leap of logic. Oh, because there's a little bit of crime. You don't even believe that. Every time we've brought up gun laws in this country, y'all make the exact opposite argument. Like, oh, well, gun laws won't eliminate every single gun death in the country. That's not what laws are for. They're there to prevent it from being too much. People still speed, but if there are no speed limits, everybody would speed. A lot more people would be murdering if there weren't murder laws. That doesn't mean murder doesn't exist anymore. It sure does. But the SAVE Act here does more harm than it does good. It doesn't prevent fraud. All it does is make it harder to vote. There isn't enough consequential voter fraud in this country to even pass something like this. That is beyond overkill. It's predatory on the poor, and it's a new poll tax on poor people. It's pointless. It makes no sense to require people to take a day off work, go stand in a long-ass line at the government building, show all this proof of identification, get a voter ID card, and pay $200 to get it. That makes no sense. It actually does make sense if you know that their whole goal here is to simply stop you from voting. That's their whole goal here.
Possible, as secure as possible.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying there were 29 cases of election fraud in Ohio. You could say 30 if you included the extra one. There was one more that was closed.
There were many more cases of that.
There was no. These were.
I love making shit up. No. Don't read the facts to me. No, stop. No, stop. Don't read the facts to me. That's not true. No, that's not true. Don't read the real statistics. I saw so much voter fraud. I just didn't tell anybody. As Secretary of State, I just didn't tell anyone.
The one Heritage Foundation, this was the actual one that were...
That's the best part, is that the voter fraud statistics we have about voter fraud in this country come from the conservative think tank, the Heritage Foundation. The Heritage Foundation is behind like the entire conservative project of the 21st century. You know, they're the ones behind all the conservative justices right now. Even their own voter fraud numbers prove our point that it's inconsequential and that a SAVE Act, you know, voter ID laws on a national scale would be detrimental to voting rights in this country. It would disenfranchise millions of people. But that's their goal. That's the conservatives' goal. They're so arrogant that their own think tank can release numbers proving them wrong, and they'll still pass a voter ID law that kneecaps millions of people's rights to vote. It's not that it necessarily gets rid of the right to vote. I mean, it kind of does, but it's more of getting rid of the accessibility to vote, which in itself is getting rid of your right to vote. If you can't make it to the poll, or you can't even get the ID required to vote, that is disenfranchisement. If you can't afford it, that's a poll tax. You're paying a $200 poll tax to go vote. That's what you're doing. That's what this law wants you to do. Next, we're going to have SAVE Act 2, where they're going to force you to take a test before you go and vote. I mean, what other Jim Crow era bullshit are we going to pull out? This is crazy. They're like, oh, there's a lot more voter fraud. I've seen it as a secretary. So there's a lot more voter fraud. I just didn't report it. And then his own think tank that backs his party is saying that there is not enough voter fraud to be consequential. Think about it. Like, imagine like, oh, there's a small anthill in my front yard, so I'm going to spray mustard gas all over my whole neighborhood to kill the one anthill. Sorry, not neighborhood. I'm going to cover my whole city in mustard gas to kill this one anthill. And this is the town where there's only one anthill in the whole town, and it's in my fucking yard. That's the solution here. There's like a small water droplet of voter fraud in the whole ocean of voting over the last 40 years. And they want to throw the world's largest sponge on top of it. That's what they're doing here.
I did my own audit. I know what.
I did my own audit? Brother! Your own think tank did its own fucking audit, and is proving you wrong. Oh my God. I did my own research. Oh my God, man. Don't believe the publicly accessible data that that has been signed off on by like every major political organization, anyone that does statistics. It's like a reliable study that shows very reliable statistics about what a non-issue voter fraud is in this country. Don't believe any of that publicly available information, and believe my little homework side project that I did while I was Secretary of State. Oh my God, what kind of bullshit fumes are these Republicans huffing into your mouth, man?
It happened in Ohio. I was in charge of elections. I can tell you
Oh my
exactly what
God.
happened. There
I
were
have your
numerous
numbers.
Cases, every election cycle.
I have your numbers, but I'm
There
talking
were
about the
over
ones that went through.
144 cases.
I'm talking about the ones that went through the full process. One single conviction from a case.
Yeah, one guy who was Secretary of State for one period of time in Ohio's whole history did his own little bullshit study on voter fraud because he was looking for something He was looking for the voter fraud. He made up some numbers about it, not realizing that this Heritage Foundation thing expands and covers like multiple decades of voting history. Nationwide, too.
Started while you were Secretary of State afterward that you could add to that 29. From a case started while you were Secretary.
For cases.
I'm talking about the ones that went through the full process. One single conviction from a case started while you were Secretary of State afterward that you could add to that 29.
Wow. One. Keep in mind, one of the most high-profile cases of voter fraud in recent American history is in the 2020 election. Donald Trump allegedly, along with several co-conspirators, allegedly, which includes the current lieutenant governor of Georgia, allegedly, and multiple Coffee County officials, election officials, allegedly installed fake electorates to try to rig Georgia in favor of Trump and not Joe Biden. That is the most recent, most infamous case of voter fraud in American history, the most recent one that I can think of. So if we want to look at voter fraud, it's not that the voters were committing fraud, it's that the candidate was allegedly committing fraud. In my home state, it was attempted. They were charged. Granted, Fonnie Willis fucked it up, but they were charged. That it was the Republicans who allegedly tried to commit voter fraud, man. So insane. It makes me so annoyed when these fuckers are like, oh, look at all this voter fraud that we found in the magic magician's hat. Good Lord, man. Oh, man. Anyway, let's talk about a lighter topic. The war in Iran.